Welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna dive into Lightroom and edit a photo that we took on the previous photo shoot, which was nice, bright, airy spring photo of a spring salad with strawberries. So if you haven't watched that video yet, I will add a link somewhere around here and you can go watch that first and then come back to the editing video. Also make sure to stay to the end of this video because I have an exciting announcement that will really help you edit the bright and airy photos that you take. So let's head to Lightroom and see what the photo looked like before editing. Okay, so here it is, the photo that we took last time. I think the photo looks really nice and airy. It has some definition in the shadows, but it's really very soft. It's really airy. It is something that I don't often do, especially for my personal work, but I really love it in spring and summer, and I think this really adds to that whole vibe. So let's go ahead and try to edit this photo to look more appetizing, beautiful, crisp, contrasty, and just like really eye-catching. So first, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the lens corrections and just go to profile. I'm gonna enable my pre-profile correction, and then I'm gonna go not here but to my basics panel, and from there I'm gonna go and check the white balance. So I think the white balance looks pretty nice. What I will do before I go and edit contrast and color and all of this fun stuff, I will go to the transform tab and try to make those lines as straight as possible. So I will use this tool here and just follow the lines and the tiles and see what happens. I think that's already looking very nice. So something like that. So if I check the before and then after, I think it looks much more straight, and it's a really simple fix. I did crop out a little bit, and I actually would probably want to crop out that top line. Let me show you again. So that top line here. So like that. Okay, so I'll then go to the tone curve, which is something I like to edit first, and just bring the midtones up a little bit. I want some definition here in the salad. And then I will just decrease the shadowy part a little bit, and maybe try to lift this thing up and see what happens. I don't think I'm gonna go with that. So let's look at the before and after, and you can see how much more contrasty the photo already looks. If we zoom into the leaf and turn on the effect, you can really see how it's starting to stand out. So I think that would be it for that. I will add a little bit of a texture. Let me zoom in and see what's happening, because I don't want to add unnecessary noise. Just add a little bit of a texture, and that's probably that. And then before I go and edit color, since we are looking at the texture, I'm gonna go to the detail panel and try to add some sharpening. And now you can see that it's looking really very artificial, so that's too much. And also one thing I love to use is masking, and I highly encourage you to use this slider. So basically it's applying the setting where you can see the white. I'm holding the Alt key to reveal the black and white image, so like that. And then let's just check some noise. So this was obviously already applied, and for a good reason, because there is some color noise there. I would also want to remove a little bit of noise over here. Yeah. So mind that this is my old camera, which is which produces less quality images than my new camera. But still, I think this is perfectly fine. I think it looks pretty nice. So we have those crisp shadows right now. What I would change here is this part of the photo. This is basically where the light was coming from. It's looking a little bit too bright. And obviously you want to do that when you photograph already, but sometimes you still need to tweak things a little bit. So I did tweak the light before I was starting to style the photo shoot to kind of minimize that effect, but I would still want to go and decrease the highlight. Probably I won't decrease the highlights, but I will go and decrease the exposure just slightly. So if we turn this off and on, you can just see how we got more definition here, and the color of the backdrop is much more uniform. So then next thing, I'll return to local adjustments later on, but next thing I want to go and edit color. So let's go to the color tab, and you can see how the greens and the reds look a little bit stale or a little bit maybe too warm for a salad that would actually need to look crisp and fresh, and that's really an easy fix. So I'll go to the reds because the strawberries are red, so I will decrease the hue, so I'll go towards the magenta a little bit, and just to show you what happened before and after, let's go just slightly more towards the magenta. I think that's looking nice. So I probably won't be changing that. It looks pretty nice. The strawberries were already looking really nice in the first place. And maybe we can add slightly a little bit of a saturation to really add the life to those strawberries. So the strawberries weren't really the most ripe strawberries from the summer, you know, those are the first of the seasons, probably imported from somewhere. So the color is really not what it would be in midst of the summer. So if I would use the strawberries from the summer, I would probably edit the colors a little bit differently. So you always need to make sure to check the colors, if they look realistic, and then go from there, not just copy someone else's edits. So if I did this now and you're shooting strawberries in the summer, they might look different. You might have to change those sliders a little bit differently than I did right now. So then also the leaves look a little bit yellowy, so I will go and increase this hue here in the greens panel. I want to zoom in just a little bit so we can see things better. So obviously if I go too far, they will be obviously too artificial looking. But if something like that looks pretty realistic. So I'm also trying to keep in mind how they actually looked in real life. And often I will just change the color slightly to go on that unrealistic look, but just ever so slightly. So this is maybe just slightly too bluish, so we'll just go down just a tad, and here I will actually try it with the opposite and decrease the saturation just ever so slightly because I really want that reds from the strawberries to pop out. And actually I'm gonna go back to the strawberries and make them a little bit more magenta. So that's looking pretty nice. Let's see the before and after, and you can see how like a really minor change can really define your photo and how you perceive it. And since our goal was to get a spring vibe, this would really add to the spring vibe. So while in the autumn you might just go in the other direction. So the yellow from the olive oil looks pretty nice, but I would actually go here to the masking tab and add a brush. I'll zoom in a little bit and just ever so slightly draw over this and increase the exposure just slightly. So there's something happening here, and that's obviously a flower. So I will probably later on, when I go and do the retouching in Photoshop, I won't include this in the video, but I will just explain what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna take another photo because I took a lot of them, and just take one that didn't have a leaf here and just, you know, use that to replace it. So then I also want to go and edit this salt here. It looks like the salt is really very matte looking. It doesn't have any definition, and I want to add some contrast to that. So I'm just gonna brush over real quickly, and I'm gonna increase the exposure a little bit, and then I won't go into contrast, but instead I'm gonna go to dehaze because it's also gonna play with the colors a little bit. So, and increase that. So let's look at the before and after, and you can see how this all came to life. The pine nuts look really, really nice. What I would maybe go and do is, when I change the color of the spinach, I actually also changed the color of these branches here, and I think they're a little bit too saturated and also a little bit maybe too greenish. So I'm gonna go and select another brush. Just gonna paint things over. I think I have the auto mask on. I will turn it off. So then, and if you don't know about the auto mask, and I have another video about some really nice hidden features in Lightroom, so I'm gonna link it somewhere up so you can watch it later on. So what I'm gonna do right now is go to this mask here. I didn't bother naming the masks, but I really highly suggest you do that when you work on your photos. So I'll go to color range and then pick the greens here. Let's do that. Okay, so just try to define where I'm gonna change the color. I think that's okay. And then I want to go and change the colors to slightly yellowish and a little bit desaturated. I think something like that, but maybe increase the exposure so they're not so dark. So let's see. Yes, so that's the difference. So looking at this photo, it looks pretty nice. What I would actually do now that I'm looking at it again, I would just go back to the tone curve and just slightly increase those mid-tones. Let's go back. Just ever so slightly, and I'll actually go and bring this down just a little bit so I don't get the washed out look. I don't want it here. So one other thing, what I would do is go to the basics panel and actually just decrease the temperature ever so slightly. I want this to look really nice and fresh. And I would also use a brush to just slightly brush over those darker areas of the salad and just bring it to life just ever so slightly. So let's look at the effect. So you can see how the salad's like now looking much more brighter and appetizing and fresh. So basically that's that, and now let's look at the final retouched photo. So while this edit is really beautiful, I love it, But you might have noticed that it actually took me a while to get there. It wasn't like snap, now I have a beautiful edit. But that's also the reason why I love to use presets in my work. And I'm super excited to let you know that I've just released my Bright Food preset collection, which is now available in my shop. So I'll add a link in the description box below in case you're interested in that. And now just a word on presets. You don't really apply presets to a photo and just move on. That would be really a recipe for catastrophe. So even when you do use presets, and even when I use presets in my own work, I will always check if there's something that needs to be fixed. So almost like 99%, 99.9% maybe of the time, you will have to go and change some of those sliders to make the photo look like it actually needs to look, even if you use presets. But just in general, presets do save a huge amount of time, so I really love working with them. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I release a new video, and I'll see you next time.